I'm back with another list of 10 movie recommendations, but fair warning with this list, you're going to want to be careful who you watch these movies with. They are all extremely graphic, most of them graphic in more ways than one. Now, I found every single one of these movies on Tubi currently, but don't worry if you don't like Tubi. I'm also going to show you on screen where else you might be able to find these movies, beginning with my number 10 pick, which is the only true horror movie on this list. There are a couple of other movies I'm going to recommend that have some horror themes, but Girl on the Third Floor is the only one on this list you would actually refer to as a horror movie, and it's a wild one. Pro wrestler CM Punk stars in this, and it's actually kind of appropriate that he looks a lot like Bruce Campbell, because this is kind of like an Evil Dead movie, a little bit. It's much slower and mysterious, but once the horror stuff begins to pop off, not only is some of it gross, but it's also bizarrely, and I do mean the word bizarrely, sexual in nature. It's ultimately a by-the-book horror movie with a handful of elements that just kind of take it to a wilder level than you would normally get. Again, some of those elements are sexual, other ones are just flat out disgusting. So while Girl on the Third Floor is really not for everybody, it is a horror hidden gem. My next pick, though, is the only all-out comedy on this list, and it's appropriately titled A Good Old-Fashioned Orgy.
Ew!
This is our chance to do it right. Take back what's been taken from us.
Isn't that from Goonies?
I am paraphrasing Goonies there, yeah.
Now, right off the bat, this movie's got an incredible cast. You've got Jason Sudeikis, Will Forte, Nick Kroll, Lake Bell, Leslie Bibb, and Tyler Labine from Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, and they're all old friends that meet up at the same house every summer, and in their kind of last summer at this house, they decide to throw a good old-fashioned orgy. Now, the movie itself is not incredibly graphic. I mean, most of the dialogue is. But you know, you've got fairly famous people here. They're not doing anything crazy on screen, but the movie revolves around the planning of this orgy, and it's just a classic raunchy comedy. If you're a fan of Jason Sudeikis, like I know a lot of people are, this is a top-notch comedy that he did that went way under the radar. So if it's been a while since you've seen like a solid adult-themed comedy, this is a great one. But with my next pick, we jump to a real bizarre one. It's just got an odd pace, subject matter, and tone, even though it stars Elijah Wood in Come to Daddy. In this movie, he's trying to reconnect with his estranged father at this beach house, or at least that's how the movie starts off. But it opens up with him showing up at this beach house, and then for about 30 to 40 minutes, it actually plays out kind of like a stage play. It's just Elijah Wood and Stephen McHattie, who's playing his father, are kind of having this banter where they're feeling each other out, and it's very entertaining. Both of them really kind of light up the screen, considering not much is actually happening action-wise. And then, halfway through the movie, there is a major plot twist, and it just turns into something completely surprising. Now, keep in mind, it's on a list full of graphic movies, and I will say, this one has little to no sexual elements in it. It's just weird and graphic, but it's incredibly interesting, and it's one of those movies that really rewards patient viewers, especially viewers that are constantly hunting for something new and different. If you clicked on this video because you want something new and different and graphic, and you're a patient viewer, Come to Daddy, I would rank this much higher for you, not so much for everybody else. But next up, we've got one with some of the biggest stars in the whole world, or at least they were back when this movie released, and it is far and away the most sexually graphic movie on this list. It's titled Closer. Now, most of the graphic stuff in Closer is dialogue driven. Some of the stuff they discuss in this movie, especially for stars as big as them, is wild to hear. Clive Owen was actually known for performing in the stage play of Closer before it was turned into a movie. And the movie revolves around four major characters who are actually having these love affairs with each other. And it's actually kind of an upsetting movie at times. It's very dramatic, incredibly heavy, but also very well done. The performances are all amazing, and it's shot really well as well, but it's very dialogue heavy and feels a lot like a stage play. Now, this is an eclectic list. There's a wide range of genres, and next up I've got an anime from the 1980s that is just like one of the slickest, coolest things to come out of the 80s period. It's titled Wicked City. Now, this is a neo-noir detective movie, or even like an early neon noir detective movie. It's got an incredible 1980s look to it. I love the style of this movie. The color palette and everything is just amazing, but on top of being this detective story, it takes place in a future where there are these demonic creatures that are coexisting with humans, but they also are able to seduce humans with like these superior sexual powers, and they're horrifying creatures. This movie's got a lot of body horror stuff, some H.P. Lovecraft elements, and again, this 1980s detective vibe that is just slick as all hell. This is one I highly recommend for people who don't care anything about anime. If you're the least bit interested in the detective or sci-fi elements that I talked about, or even just the aesthetic I've showed you, this flick is just beyond cool. But my number 5 pick is another one with an all-star cast, but it too requires some patient viewing. It's titled Before the Devil Knows You're Dead.
Right. Still would.
It's also worth noting it's one of Philip Seymour Hoffman's last movies, and really one of his last truly great films. He and Ethan Hawke play brothers who are hard up for different reasons. They need money and they decide to knock off their parents' jewelry store, and as you could imagine, it does not go well. But do not look at this as a heist movie. The robbery is a very short portion of it. You're really dealing with these two brothers that have done something terrible to their parents. You're looking at the aftermath and also the lead up. The movie's got an incredible look to it. The cinematography is amazing. Obviously, Philip Seymour Hoffman's great, but you also get like a great role from Marissa Tomei. This is just a top-notch art house thriller from legendary director Sidney Lumet, who also did 12 Angry Men. Yeah, the original 12 Angry Men. In fact, those two movies are 50 years apart from each other, and they're both just incredibly well directed. But speaking of legendary directors, next up I've got a movie from easily one of the most legendary directors of all time and one of the most prolific, and it's the movie he's kind of most known for. It's titled Ichi the Killer, and this is from director Takashi Miike, who did a bunch of amazing movies in Japan. I mean, I think he has about 100 film credits to his name as director, which is like a record breaker. He's also known for 13 Assassins and Audition. All of his movies are brutal and bloody, and Ichi the Killer takes the cake. This is a wild movie. It's very disturbing. It's really not for most people. It's for people who are kind of looking for something with an edge, but this movie's not just about the vulgarity. It's an incredible film, but it's just one of those movies that's going to be way too disturbing for most folks. That said, it's still just a clever movie that pops, and it's one that's going to be hard to shake. You're going to have trouble forgetting this movie if you decide to watch it. And then we've got another legendary director. This is easily the most sexually graphic movie Brian De Palma ever directed. It's titled Body Double. And as far as legendary directors go, this is Brian De Palma's attempt at making an Alfred Hitchcock thriller, or at least an Alfred Hitchcock thriller sort of updated for the 1980s, meaning it's more graphic and more adult themed than things were in the 50s and 60s by a pretty steep margin. In this movie, a man witnesses a crime and then begins to investigate it, but it's a sexually laced crime. Something happens to a woman that he's been kind of spying on from his apartment window. So right away, you've got comparisons to Alfred Hitchcock's Rear Window. But even some of the camera work in this movie feels deliberately Hitchcockian. And then Melanie Griffith plays a porn star, and a lot of her scenes are incredibly graphic, especially for the 80s when this came out. And the adult film industry is one of the major sort of themes that Body Double revolves around, so you get a lot of graphic stuff from that. But just like Wicked City, it's got this incredible 1980s look to it, neon lights everywhere and everything. It's got a bunch of surprising moments in it, and I highly recommend the movie. I would say Body Double is almost as good as Alfred Hitchcock's best work, and certainly almost as good as Brian De Palma's best work. I got two more movies on this list, but I thought I'd mention, if you do like this Mad Max shirt, I designed it along with my wife. We've got a bunch of new designs over at the t-shirt shop. You can check it out at darrenvandam.com/shop. The shirts are all ridiculously soft, but They are a fitted style, so if you like your shirts loose or a little bit bigger, definitely try to go a size up. But my next pick is an action-packed hidden gem I have loved since it was released. This is a movie I love to recommend to people, and so far, most people seem to love it as much as I do. And it's one of Paul Walker's weirdest and most interesting movies. It's titled Running Scared. Now, in this movie, he plays a criminal who loses a gun that could implicate him and a bunch of other people in a crime, and he spends the entire night hunting down this one particular gun. Not only is he hunting that down, but his neighbor's son goes missing, and then his son goes missing, and it ends up being a wild ride. And the way it's shot is absolutely incredible. I mean, if you're not into this movie in the first 6 minutes, not 15. If you're not into it in the first 6 minutes, move on. Maybe it's not for you. Vera Farmiga is in this well before she was famous, and because she's not famous, she gets up to some graphic stuff in this as well. But I even remember seeing Siskel and Ebert review this movie back when it released, and they even pointed out there is a plot twist at one point that kind of negates the entire story. And it doesn't matter. They even agreed that it doesn't matter because the ride to get there is so fun and electric, it kind of doesn't matter. Like, plot holes don't make that big a deal in a movie like this because everything else kind of outshines it. If you dig some of the wilder crime movies I like to recommend here, some of the crazier hidden gems, this is a top-notch recommendation. But then I feel like I need to qualify my number one pick because I don't strongly recommend this for everyone, even though it's my number one pick. And the reason it made this spot is because it's a movie that has grown on me over the years, and it has become one of my favorite comedies to rewatch. It's titled The Beach Bum.
You have pissed away your talent on women and booze and... Now you're talking. That's what feeds the juices up here in my nugget, man.
Now, in this movie, Matthew McConaughey plays a beach bum, but he's more than that. He's actually a famous poet that has kind of resigned himself to just drink his life away down in the Florida Keys. This is directed by Harmony Korine, who's famous for a bunch of really bombastic movies. I mean, his movies are very in your face, and The Beach Bum is as well, but unlike some of his other movies, everything about The Beach Bum, almost everything, is delightful. Or I should say, delightfully depraved.
I'm off to write the next great American novel. We may have a gangbang when I get back. I will invite your mother.
Thank you, Mr. Moondog.
Matthew McConaughey is just incredible. This is an amazing role from him, and the movie is shot beautifully. I mean, incredible cinematography in a movie like this. You just would not expect it. It's got a cool soundtrack. Jimmy Buffett and Snoop Dogg are both in the movie, and it's kind of like a road movie in the sense that Matthew McConaughey's character ends up having sequences with other characters that only last for, that one sequence. He's got a great one, and I mean a great one with Zac Efron. They're both in rehab together, and then ultimately, the point that this movie's trying to make not only took me by surprise, but I've never seen it expressed in a movie before, and again, I thought it was a delightful point the movie was trying to make, even though it does it in a wild manner. I should also point out, Martin Lawrence's sequence is also one of my favorites.
4 deaths in over 8 straight years of Dolphin touring is a terrific record. Now, I've been stripped of my license temporarily on 5 separate occasions.
It's just a hilarious movie with a different flavor than you're going to be used to. So I recommend going into this one with an open mind, but be ready for some wild stuff with The Beach Bum and a solid, fun time. On top of it just being a good film. It's really kind of an amazing movie that's unique unto itself, which is why it's my number one pick. Let me know what you look forward to watching down in the comments below. Don't forget to go check out the t-shirts over at darrenvandam.com/shop. But I will keep making these lists as long as y'all keep watching them. Thanks for checking out this special Tubi list, and you will see me on the next one.